So, Charlie, we knew that we probably should have gone the other way because it was groupthink last week. All four junkies convinced that Kansas City was going to win.
Well, I'll tell you what. We all know predictions don't mean much. It's what happens in the game. It's matchups. The thing that happened that was really dramatically different in the game was the Kansas City skilled players. Whether it's Lee and Kelsey, et cetera, are better than the back four of Tampa Bay. Okay, man to man. You put them up there, it's a dramatic difference. Okay, but what happens in the game is Bowles did a great job of keeping Kansas City off balance. 2 weeks to prepare is a big advantage for the defense. See, you got that extra week, and they took advantage of it. They kept them off balance. You can't really get much from television, the specifics of it, but you could pick up little things. But the point is, Mahomes, you could see, was never in a rhythm, and he was hesitating. And that was the equalizer to me in the game, because that allowed the mismatch was dramatic between especially the defensive ends, Barrett and JPP, and in a sense, your backup offensive tackles, Remmers, who is better at right, he's at left, and Wiley's a guard, and he's trying to play tackle. So you combine the secondary with neutralizing Ty Hill, taking him out of the game, and making Kelsey a more statistical factor than an impact factor. Quarterback's got to hold the ball. Now the pass rush can get there. And that was the thing that on paper shouldn't have happened, but it did happen, so credit to Bowles.
Well, let's be real, Charlie. What a dud of a game. How boring was that game to watch? That was as much fun as cutting grass. And I'm so glad I didn't watch the fourth quarter, because what a waste of time that would have been. You couldn't get that 30 minutes back of your life. I'm glad I went to bed, I DVR'd it, and I watched a little bit this morning, and it was one of the worst games I've ever seen.
I have a feeling Charlie was more entertained than you.
He probably was.
Well, I was into the game. I did halftime for NFL Network. I did post-game. We did radio for the first we simulated radio for the first quarter. So, I can't go to bed. I got to know what the heck's happened and talk about it. So, of course I was interested.
Did you think there were no adjustments? A lot of people were criticizing the Chiefs, saying they were just surprised that they weren't able to adjust.
Well, first of all, you can't tell anything from television. Mm-hmm. And I got to say this. I didn't get anything out of the broadcast about adjustments or the coverages or exactly what Bowles was doing. Okay? Mm-hmm. So it's an easy thing to say when things aren't working, they're not making adjustments. Okay? So then my question is, tell me the adjustments they're supposed to make. And there's dead silence when that happens, see.
Well, Tyreek Hill, Charlie, maybe you can chime in on this. Tyreek Hill, after the game, said the Chiefs prepared to face mostly man with some zone mixed in. Instead, they faced almost all cover 2 and cover 4. Hill just tipped his cap to Todd Bowles, but what do you do when you face those type of defenses?
Well, I'm not a coach, so but basically, what you want to do with cover 2 is you've got to attack. You've got to get on top of the safety, which Hill can do. Mm-hmm. And then beat him in a one-on-one situation. Now, if he's going to be that deep, you just pull up and you take what's there, and you just, as Hank Stram used to say, matriculate down the field.
Right.
So you take holes in the zone. Tampa did not play zone very well during the course of the year watching their tapes. A lot of holes in the zone. And whether Mahomes couldn't read the zone properly fast enough before the pass rush got there, I don't know that. I kept talking about this, and I never heard it on the broadcast. Atlanta stopped them. Yep. Atlanta had Mahomes off balance the whole day with mixing coverages, occasional blitz, and a 4-man rush against a weak offensive line that was not nearly as good as what Tampa had. And the reason I brought up Atlanta is Bob Sutton, who was the defensive coordinator at Kansas City for a long time, was a defensive assistant with Atlanta. So you got to figure he knows better than anybody the things that will give Mahomes trouble. Okay? And I can't say Tampa looked at that tape and copied it. I'm sure they looked at the tape. Bowles is smart enough to come up with his own things. But basically, in that first game, they tried to match up one-on-one, and they couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. And so, obviously, we're adding something in we don't know, that the adjustments that Kansas City made or Mahomes was able to make couldn't get done. Now, that's what we don't know. That's an assumption.
Well, the other thing is we're talking to Charley Casserly from the NFL Network, former GM of the Houston Texans and Washington football team, is that you have to credit Tampa's offense. They really started to roll at the end of the season. They put up over 500 yards against a really good Washington football team's defense, and they put over 30 points in all 4 playoff games, Charlie.
Yeah, Brady from day one talked about continuity being a big factor, and he was like, he had Randy Moss. Randy Moss was great. He always had a slot. But Randy Moss was only there for a very short time. Go look at the receivers that he had there. Most of them wouldn't start for the Tampa Bay, when you think about it. So, and he had Gronk. Well, still had Gronk, okay?
Right.
So he got Gronk back, okay? He had good runners in this game. So anyway, and defensively, that's a great front seven. It really is. So the secondary, I think, still needs work. But anyway, he talked about continuity. You saw continuity go through the season. Now, what we can't say is that it seemed to me that they weren't always on the same page, but you saw kind of a disjointed is what other people said about their offense. But what happened is Brady all of a sudden got hot throwing the ball deep, and the offense looked a lot different. Now, yesterday, clearly they were taking away the deep ball, but Kansas City isn't very good on defense. I thought they could run at the linebackers. I thought they could run outside at the defensive ends. I thought that they would struggle covering the tight ends and the running backs. And they did all those things. And the way you could beat their corners, they did it. Breland, you can beat them on deep speed. Well, you saw Evans run by him at the end of the first half, and you had the penalty. But the corners are long striders who have trouble changing direction. So what do? You run them off and you come back. They can't cover moves. So once you make a move, they got to grab and hold. They penalize that. Some Super Bowls, you never call a penalty. Guess what? They decided to call penalties yesterday.
Yeah.
So I'm saying is they exploited the weaknesses of the corners specifically, the weaknesses in the run game, and the weaknesses in the linebackers and the safeties. It was an excellent game plan, and Brady makes everything look simple. It's unbelievable.
He
All right,
really
so
does.
let's rewind and move off of the Super Bowl for a second. The last time we had you on, you were convinced Stafford was going to stay in Detroit. Let's not lament that. Let's just talk about what Stafford is going to do in Los Angeles. What do you expect?
Well, let me finish that part of it. I talked to the people going in there for interviews. They all wanted Stafford. I talked to somebody, not the head coach, but somebody else familiar with the situation. The die was cast. He said the ship had already sailed when they went in for the interview. Stafford was gone. Okay,
Gotcha.
So he's better than Goff. Let's start there. Okay, I think he's got a stronger arm. I think that he'll be better with poise in the pocket. He's one of the smartest quarterbacks you'll ever meet in talking to people that have been around him and interviewed. He's not necessarily the most vocal leader, but he leads by example, and he is tough now. Okay, there's no question about that. So I think they've upgraded themselves there at the quarterback position in all levels of the play. Maybe Goff might be a little bit more mobile, but this guy's mobile enough to run the bootlegs.
So, Charlie, what do you think is going to happen with some of these other quarterbacks? Deshaun Watson may or may not go. I would probably bet that he doesn't. I would bet that he would stay. But what about Carson Wentz? What about Carr?
Darnold.
Darnold? What's Washington going to do? What do you think is going to happen here?
Yeah, first of all, I have no idea. I don't follow any of that stuff. I usually react to it afterwards. But I was told yesterday by one of our people that they expect Wentz to be traded. India seems to be a logical landing place, assuming Frank Reich was there and they drafted him and he had success. So they're definitely going to be aggressive about looking for a quarterback. I'm sure they were heavy into the Stafford thing. And I know they were involved in it. I don't know how heavy that, but I'm sure that they put a 1 out there, I would guess. I mean, that's got to be the 1 and a 2 was Price, except, L.A. kind of trumped them by all those future ones on there. I think they're going to take a hard look at Darnold. In all honesty, what they're going to do with the Jets is the process. They're going to evaluate Darnold, then they're going to go through the whole draft process, and then they'll make a decision. And that's exactly. Now people say, well, that's not an answer. Well, it is an answer. Okay? They are not going to dismiss Darnold. They believe Darnold has talent, and in their offense, which is the Ram-Shanahan offense where you've got the bootlegs and the play action, this guy should thrive. Now, they got to get a lot of other pieces there, too. And the BYU quarterback, to me, Wilson, is the number 2 quarterback, clearly. And I think that will show up as people make their ratings in the spring. So that's the guy they got to compare Darnold to.
Wow. What do you think of Gardner Minshew? Like, if you're looking for somebody on the cheap, that guy's put up numbers when given an opportunity to play, Charlie. I mean, I know it's more than numbers.
I think he's a backup quarterback. People have been around him feel the same way. They don't feel there's the consistency to be a starting quarterback, but he's a heck of a number 2.
Gotcha. All right.
Getting back to last night, how much of a distraction do you think it was for Andy Reid for what happened with his son last week? Because he didn't look. His body language wasn't great. Now that could be for other reasons, but.
With a mask, I'm never sure about body language anymore, okay? So every time I put a mask on, I think of a guy walking in a bank. I don't know. Anyway, and I wear a mask all the time like everybody else does now. But anyway, it's impossible to know that, so I don't want to speculate. I'll say this. This is just a general statement. Mm-hmm. When something bad has happened on the eve, meaning a few days before the Super Bowl, the team seemed to have lost. In other words, you go back to, and again, we don't know the answer to this question. It obviously seems like a tragic situation there at the moment. You go way back to the Raiders, and then they suspend one of the starting offensive linemen the night because of something. Yep. You go way back with the Atlanta Falcons, and was it Eugene Robinson, the player's name?
Yeah, he was out with the lady of the night.
Yep, he was out paying for it. Yep. Yeah.
Working girl.
Wasn't he man of the year or something like that too, or whatever? I'm trying to remember. I can't remember.
Was that offensive lineman? Was that Barrett Robbins?
I think that's right. Yeah.
That's Barrett Robbins. So Atlanta lost the game. Now both teams probably would have lost the game anyway. Okay, so it's hard to say something like that has an effect on the game. Clearly, by Andy Reid's statements after the game, I mean he. Felt very bad about what's happening. No question about that. I don't know if that's the right words, but he did have a statement regarding it.
Well, I just mentioned, Charlie, that every time I've ever watched a Chiefs game, I always see Andy Reid with the play sheet in his hands. And for the first time, I noticed, and I understand Bieniemy's the offense coordinator and maybe calls some plays, but for the first time, I noticed Bieniemy with the play sheet and Reid doing nothing.
Yeah, I don't know. I do not know the answer to that question. I'm sure that will come out soon. But, Bieniemy, I was told, called plays in one game this year. But up to this year and up to maybe that game, he's never called plays before. So that would be a big story if that's true.
And let me bring it back to the Washington football team because
and if you go back to Ty Hill's comments about lack of adjustments and things like that, you're putting a lot of dots together here.
Yeah. Going back to the Washington football team, I understand you don't know what's going to happen. There's a lot of speculation. But I want to get your opinion on whether you think the team could just run it back. It seems like Alex Smith wants to play again. Could they just run it back with Alex Smith and Heineke?
Well, can and do might be the same thing.
Right.
Seriously. Now, if you ask me about a player, I'll give you an opinion. But what they're going to do, I have no idea.
Right.
Alex Smith, you can't count on. God bless him. Okay. Mm-hmm. How many games do you think this guy can line up and play? He didn't line up and play every game this year. So you got to think that that's going to be a problem for you. Okay. The second thing is I like Heineke. I was on the show. I talked to him before. He reminds me of Doug Flutie. Now, who's Doug Flutie for most people out there? Okay, Doug Flutie was a 5'9" quarterback who came into the NFL and did not do well as a 5'9" quarterback. Couldn't see, and then that was it. Came back after playing in Canada and being a star up there and became a darn good quarterback as he was able to find a way as a short quarterback to be able to see through the lanes and throw the ball. And the Heineke was on part 2 of Flutie when I'm watching him in that game. And even the week before, he came in the fourth quarter, he knew exactly where to go with the football. Now, can you sit there and bank on it? No. But can you sit there and dismiss him? No, you can't do that either. Give him a shot. Russell Wilson was taken as a backup quarterback in the 3rd round. All of a sudden, you go watch him in practice, hey, this guy's pretty good. You go put him in a preseason, this guy's pretty good. We got to go play this guy. You go play him, and he was pretty good. Maybe this guy can do it, but I'm sure that's not the plan. That's an alternate plan. But, who are they going to get? Well, Philly not going to trade in the division, I don't think. Sam Darnold could stay where he is, where they're taking. They got to maybe look at the Alabama quarterback and see is he worth taking there or trade back and get him. Alabama quarterback to me is Andy Dalton. So you got to decide And Andy Dalton is probably better than what they have as far as if we have to bet on it.
Right.
Interesting. All right, Charlie. Good stuff as always. We'll talk to you
All right,
soon.
man.
Appreciate it.
Talk to
All
you
right,
soon,
thank you,
bud.
pal.
It's great, Charley Casserly from the NFL Network.